Anna, we're getting startling new information now about this Republican operative, Peter Smith. We've learned new details about his strange suicide note and about his reported attempt to get hold of those hacked Clinton emails during last year's campaign. There are serious new questions being raised now about the timing of Peter Smith's death. Peter Smith reportedly moved around under mysterious circumstances, and now there are questions over whether he died under them. Smith, a Republican operative, was found dead in his room in this hotel near the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota in mid-May. Police tell CNN it was suicide, asphyxiation. The medical examiner's report saying the victim, quote, placed bag over head and attached helium source.
This isn't, shooting yourself or impaling yourself or something that I think people would see as more violent. It's a more peaceable method, if you will.
Police say in his hotel room, the 81-year-old left a roadmap, documents indicating he'd been in ill health recently and that his insurance policy was about to expire. The police report says, quote, the documents included a note that there was no foul play. That odd suicide note, combined with what Smith told Wall Street Journal reporter Shane Harris just 10 days before he died, is putting his death into the spotlight.
So Peter Smith told me that he put together a group of lawyers and technology experts and a private investigator in Europe to get in contact with hackers, which he believed would be in Russia, who they suspected may have obtained Hillary Clinton's private emails from her server.
Smith told the Wall Street Journal he had done this during the late stages of the 2016 presidential campaign.
He wanted to get those emails, acquire them, and then publish them so that it would be politically damaging to Secretary Clinton.
Computer security analyst Matt Tate says Smith told him, quote, about having been contacted by someone from the dark web claiming to have Clinton's personal emails, and said he might need help authenticating them. Tate wrote that Smith, quote, had a reckless lack of interest in whether the emails came from a Russian cutout. Peter Smith told the Journal that General Michael Flynn, then serving as National Security Advisor to the Trump campaign, was aware of Smith's operations.
Was there any legitimacy to that? Was Flynn aware? Did he have any ties to the campaign?
Well, Flynn has not commented for the story. The campaign has said that if Peter Smith was doing something with General Flynn, that was in General Flynn's private capacity. So it's still not entirely clear to what extent Mike Flynn was involved in this. There's no doubt that these two men knew each other.
An attorney for Michael Flynn didn't return our calls or emails seeking comment. In the end, Shane Harris says, Peter Smith believed he had gathered those private Hillary Clinton emails, but couldn't completely verify their accuracy, so he never put them out. Now, some on Capitol Hill, including one member of the House Intelligence Committee, think Smith's efforts are one more avenue that should be investigated in the Russia probe.
It's something that should be probed further, and I hope it now gets folded into what we're doing.
Now, aside from Michael Flynn's attorney never getting back to us, the White House also did not return our calls or emails. But a senior official from the Trump presidential campaign told me he had never heard of Peter Smith or about Smith's reported attempts to get hold of those Clinton emails during the campaign. Anna?
Brian Todd, thank you. I want to take you live now to a Bernie Sanders event. Here he is speaking in Iowa for the first time since the 2016 campaign. This just a day after saying in an interview, it's too early to talk 2020, but he's not taking it off the table. Here's Sanders moments ago talking about what he sees as the gravest threat to elections in America. Listen.
American democracy is not the Koch brothers buying elections. It is ordinary Americans determining the future of this country. Some Republican wants to run for office talking about giving tax breaks to billionaires and cutting Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and education. That is his or her prerogative. Run for office on those ideas. See how many votes you get. Don't run for office.
We'll keep watching this for you and bring you any highlights coming up. A popular spot where tourists can feel the blast of jet engines. Now, the White House is adding a brand new face to its legal team. Veteran Washington lawyer Ty Cobb will be White House special counsel coordinating between the various Russia investigations and the many lawyers now involved. Cobb is rumored to be a relative of the famous Baseball Hall of Famer with the same name, although he will neither confirm nor deny it. It all comes amid a flurry of dramatic reports centered on the president's personal lawyer, Mark Kasowitz. Let's talk it over with CNN legal analyst and former New York City homicide prosecutor Paul Callan. Paul, according to the Washington Post, Kasowitz is struggling to manage his client who won't follow instructions, won't discipline himself. They write this, quote, after one meeting in which they, his legal team, urged Trump to steer clear of a certain topic, he sent a tweet about that very theme before they arrived back at their office. So, Paul, what would you do if you were President Trump's personal lawyer right now?
You know, he's got a horrible situation on his hands. He's got a president who is being investigated by a special prosecutor. And what lawyers tell their clients is essentially, don't say anything or talk about anything related to the case unless you clear it with me. And the president's, you know, sending these tweets out at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Believe me, it's enough to give a lawyer a heart attack, or at least a stress attack, which apparently is what happened with Kasowitz. So,
you think that's what happened with these emails?
Pardon me?
You think that's what happened with these emails? I want to read, in fact, what happened here, and just to bring our viewers up to speed in case they missed this. It's easy, too, with everything moving fast and furious. Kasowitz sent this expletive-laced email to a stranger, a man who had apparently been watching a cable news segment on the Russia investigation, had sent him an email, and some of what he wrote, Kasowitz, back to this viewer, this cable news viewer, he says, watch your back, bleep. Don't be afraid, you piece of bleep. Paul, well, what do you think is behind that kind of reaction? You think it might be stress-related, or is this just his style?
Well, he's known to be a very aggressive lawyer in court, and one of the reasons Trump has used him through the years is because that's the style that Trump likes. But let me tell you something, Anna. That letter, and you're not talking about what's really in it because you've got to bleep out half of it, is a disgraceful example of a lawyer who's totally lost it in terms of what's proper and improper. I mean, he's representing the President of the United States. You can't be sending letters to people who, you know, complain about you. I mean, social media is a part of life these days, and you always get criticism. So I think he's under a lot of stress because Trump won't listen to him. There's also been there's a lawsuit that was filed against his law firm since he was named as counsel to the president relating to billing improprieties. Has nothing to do with the president, but it's put the firm under stress. And then there was an article in ProPublica very harshly critical of Kasowitz. And I think that combination of things probably caused him to just lose it at 10 o'clock at night and send that letter out.
Yeah, I want to read some of his response. This viewer reportedly told Kasowitz he should resign from representing President Trump. Paul, we know the president himself considers himself a fighter, and he likes having fighters on his team. But is hiring a tough-talking lawyer something that could backfire?
It usually does, in my experience. When you hire lawyers who you know, are totally uncooperative and exist only to fight with the other side, it causes lawsuits to go on far longer than they normally would. But if you look at the history of the way Donald Trump ran his real estate empire, he used lawsuits really as a weapon, and because he had so much money and so much power, he was able to win many cases just because the other side couldn't afford to continue the fight. He started out, by the way, his first lawyer was a guy named Roy Cohn, who was counsel to the McCarthy committee in the 1950s, considered to be one of the nastiest, most vicious lawyers in New York. He's since passed away. Trump, one story is that Trump used to take a picture of Roy Cohn out of a drawer that he kept in his office and show it to people and say, I'm going to send this guy after you if you don't agree with me. So this is Trump's style, and Kasowitz just reflects that style. But it worked for Trump. It doesn't usually work for other people unless they have $1 billion to spend on legal expenses.
Paul Callan, thanks so much. And by the way, you can read Paul Callan's op-ed on CNN.com in which he discusses whether Kasowitz could now be in legal trouble himself after this fiery email exchange. Again, thanks, Paul. Good to see you. Coming up, the long goodbye, the epic handshake between Trump and the president of the White House this week. The president's senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was rubbing shoulders with the super wealthy in Sun Valley, Idaho. The images of Kushner at this posh resort were a stark contrast to the numerous unflattering headlines about his involvement in a meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and a Russian lawyer. Well, now one Republican has some pointed advice for the president. Congressman Bill Flores of Texas saying this, quote, I'm going out on a limb here, But I would say that I think it would be in the president's best interest if he removed all of his children from the White House. Not only Donald Trump Jr., but Ivanka and Jared Kushner. Joining me now is CNN political commentator and former Reagan White House political director Jeffrey Lord and Democratic strategist Robert Zimmerman. Gentlemen, this is a lightning round, so here are the rules. You each have 30 seconds to respond to the questions, and you each get a chance for each question. We have a buzzer when your time is up. So our first question, are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Is it in Trump's best interest to get his kids, his children, out of the White House? Robert, you first.
I think the Kardashian family would do a better job serving Donald Trump than, in fact, his own children do, with the exception of Barron. But frankly, all the adult children are involved in conflicts of interest. In some cases, like Jared Kushner, he's left off over 100 names and had to change his disclosure forms 3 different times. And quite seriously, he should have his national security clearance pulled because it's a risk to our country.
Nice one, Jeffrey. Nice one, because you stayed within those 30 seconds. Jeffrey, I want to get what your thoughts are.
Yeah, not even close. No, I definitely think he should keep them. He depends on them. They're great for him. And other presidents, Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, Franklin Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln have had, and particularly John F. Kennedy, have had family members in the White House or the cabinet or highly placed, and they depended on them, and so should Donald Trump.
All right, guys, moving on. Conservative columnist, Fox News contributor Charles Krauthammer, he made headlines this week for saying Donald Trump Jr.'s emails are proof of attempted collusion. Let's listen.
I don't think it's illegal. I don't think anybody is claiming that this is illegal, but it does. The one thing it does, it totally undermines a 6-month story from the White House to which I was sympathetic, that there wasn't any collusion. This was a bungled collusion. This was amateurish collusion. This was Keystone Cops collusion, but it doesn't change the fact that it was attempted collusion.
Jeffrey, he says collusion over and over again. Even if there's nothing illegal that happened here, the emails, they're black and white. Do you agree with his assessment that this is now evidence of collusion?
No, I don't. I think it's silly. I think this is way overdone. Former Speaker Gingrich called this fevered insanity. I think that's a pretty apt description. I'd like somebody to come here to the lower precinct of East Pennsboro Township in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, and show me what votes were changed by that meeting. The answer is none.
Robert?
Well, you know, we've gone in this discussion from first saying there were no meetings with Russians to saying there was no collusion, now to argue that the collusion was not illegal. The point here is we clearly know by the emails not only was it an attempt at conclusion, the Trump family was embracing it. They were truly embracing the idea of an enemy state working with them to interfere in our presidential election. So the question is not whether it's illegal. The question is what's next. But we do know one fact. It's certainly not patriotic.
Well, we're dealing with timers. Let's take a look at this. This epic handshake between President Trump and President Macron of France. It lasted a whopping 29 seconds. It evolved into so many things. You can't help but laugh. Robert, what does the body language say to you about the relationship that these two leaders have after this last foreign trip?
Well, think about it this way. The president first began by refusing to shake Chancellor Angela Merkel's hand, and then from there, he, of course, tried to push a world leader away from his spot so he could get a better photo option, and try to push a world leader out of the way. Now he seems to be engaging in these handshake embraces, like with the president of France, and either President Trump's holding on for dear life, or his small hand may have gotten caught in the sleeve of the jacket. I'm not sure which it was.
Jeffrey, what's your take?
Well, having shaken the president's hands a fair number of times, he's a good handshaker. He's a really nice guy. He can be very engaging, and I think that's exactly what you were seeing there and nothing more.
You don't, well, we have a few extra seconds. You don't think there was more going on there? I mean, he was holding on, hugging, kissing,
I think,
not letting go.
I think he's building alliances with the allies.
All right.
That's working real well for us, isn't it? I mean, we've never been more unpopular with our allies and held in more disrespect. So he's got a lot of work to do. His handshakes are the least of his problems.
Pretty popular with
he can start by
President
not insulting our allies.
All right, let's move on to singer Kid Rock.